passage of time, we have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your healthcare needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.
This meeting of the Starkville Board of Alderman will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance, to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have before you a copy of the modified written agenda. Are there any proposed revisions to the agenda as written? Alderman Parker.
I'd like to actually add, under public appearances, I'd like to add public appearance by Small Pond Graphics concerning the Environmental and Sanitation Services Department logo. We can take the matter up at its regularly, as it is on the agenda. If she's got a presentation to make, she can make her presentation. We can make the decision as it is on the agenda.
I have no problem with that going to the consent if you want to put it on there.
Okay, that's fine. I would move to
The logo?
the logo, which is,
Hold on, let's go one at a time.
okay, that's fine.
The first proposed revision is to add item B under Roman numeral 7, public appearances, Small Pond Graphics to make a presentation on a logo for sanitation and environmental services. Is there any objection to that proposed revision? Any objections?
Mr. Mayor, if we're going to have on consent, you still want to vote?
No, right, we don't need it on.
Okay, so you
That's
want to
fine.
do that in lieu of the public appearance?
That's fine.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. So there will be no revision to add the public presentation, provided that this matter is placed on consent.
Correct.
Now proceed. What's the matter?
No, that's correct.
Yeah, well, you need to actually place that on consent.
I'd like to add, under item L, number 3, I'd like to place that on the consent agenda.
All right, the proposed revision is to place item L3 on page 7, which is a request for approval of a logo for the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department for use on all recycling, department-related publication, and correspondence on the consent agenda.
Correct.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection, any objection, any objection? Seeing none, please make note of the change. That item has been placed on the consent agenda. Further proposed revisions. Alderman Dibble.
I've got a couple. Under board business, I'd like to move item I, discussion regarding Carver Drive ditch, to number 1 under board business, or number A.
Alderman Dumas has made a revision proposal to place item 10I on page 4, discussion regarding Carver Drive ditch, to the beginning of board business, making it item A, and reordering to accommodate the change. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, please note the change. That item has been moved to the beginning of the board business agenda.
Under building codes, planning department, I'd like to place all items on consent.
All right, now let me ask the city attorney.
Well, let's take that one at a time. I need to enumerate those conditions.
In discussions at staff meeting, there was discussion about how these items were handled with respect to, I guess, a 6-month expiration period. And Chris, I was told that you had comments for how that was handled at P&Z and how that needs to be handled at the board meeting.
There was a discussion at the P&Z about how long it should take someone to get a permit for construction. And the ordinance says that if you sit on your conditional use for 6 months, your use becomes null and void. And so the P&Z determined that the appropriate time frame would be 6 months. And so with respect to B2, B3, and B2 and B3, there was a 6-month condition that permits would need to be acquired prior to construction. They came to that decision after they deliberated on B1. So B1 still says 1 year, whereas B2 and B3 say 6 months.
Okay. So that was the discussion as it came from P&Z. I just wanted whatever you were about to do to be informed with that discussion.
Okay. Well, under item 1, B1, I'd like to place on consent with the 5 conditions recommended by P&Z.
All right, the proposed revision is to place item B1 on page 4, the request for consideration to approve P&Z item number CU 1101 with the 5 conditions as recommended by staff on the consent agenda. Is that the proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection to that proposed revision? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, item B1 on page 4 has been placed on the consent agenda. Are there any further proposed revisions?
But under B2, place on consent with the 5 conditions recommended by P&Z.
All right. Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place item B2 on page 4, request for consideration to approve P&Z item number CU 1102 with 5 conditions as recommended by P&Z on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, that's your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed revision?
B3 with the 8 conditions recommended by P&Z.
Alderman Dumas has, I assume that was to place that on the consent agenda?
Under consent, that's correct.
All right, Alderman Dumas has further proposed revising the agenda to place item B3 on page 4, the request for consideration to approve P&Z item number CU 11-03 with the 8 conditions as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, that's your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, please make note that matter has been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed revision?
B4 with the 8 conditions recommended by P&Z
All right.
on consent.
Alderman Dumas has further proposed revision to revise the agenda to place item number B4 on page 5, consideration of P&Z item number FP 11-03 with how many conditions?
8.
8 conditions as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, please make note of that item being placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed
Finally,
revision?
E2 on consent under Electric Department.
Actually, that matter needs to be pulled from the agenda. And Mr. Kemp informed me just before the meeting that there are further negotiations to be had before that matter is ready. So without objection, Alderman Dumas, would you propose to strike that matter from the agenda?
I sure do.
Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to strike item E2, request for approval of a pole attachment license agreement on page 5 from the agenda. Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been stricken from the agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed revision?
No.
Do any members of the board have further proposed revision?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Vaughn.
up on the board business F, I'd like to move a consideration of the approval of the South Montgomery Street traffic study proposal and scope and organization of the mayor to execute the cost plus fix engineer contract. I'd like to move that to the consent.
Alderman Vaughn has proposed revising the agenda to move item 10F, consideration of the approval of the South Montgomery Street traffic study proposal and scope, and authorization for the mayor to execute cost plus fixed fee engineering contract to the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
That's it.
Any objection? Any objection? Alderman Dumas, is that an objection?
No, I'm sorry.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revision?
G, on the board business G, consideration of accept the placemaker.
All right, Alderman Vaughn has proposed revising the agenda to place item G, consideration of accepting Placemakers LLC for the development of a master plan and form-based code for sections of downtown Starkville and authorization to enter into contract negotiations on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
That's my proposal.
Any objection? Any objection?
I just got a question. What kind of monetary figure are you talking about? It wasn't in here. Would that be negotiated later on? in the
Yeah,
plan?
those are negotiated now. As an RFQ, we couldn't ask for proposal numbers, so that will be negotiated now.
Okay.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? Are there any further proposed revisions to the agenda? Any further proposed revisions?
You got one.
Alderman Vaughn?
On the electric, I'd like to take, electric department, E, take one, request the organization advertise a tree trimming and removal service. Take that off consent. I just want to find out, we already have one, or we doing something else different? I'll just take that one off.
Okay. Item E1 on page 5, a request for authorization to advertise for a tree trimming and removal service has been removed from the consent agenda. Any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? Are there any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? All right, seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda as revised is in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Corey to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. The measure clearly passes. The first matter for your consideration on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. You have the now revised consent agenda before you. Is there any objection to the consent agenda as revised? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda as revised has been approved. And that will carry us to the consideration of the approval of the minutes from March 1st, 2011. Discussion.
So moved.
Alderman Dumas has,
I'm sorry. I'll read.
Alderman Dumas has rescinded his motion. Discussion.
I believe the city attorney had some comments or corrections for the minutes.
Attorney Latimer?
I did. I emailed those corrections to the board and to Mrs. Outlaw yesterday, and they've been implemented, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
It will, except for the ones where we're waiting on signatures.
Okay.
Execution.
And just to spread it on the record, there were two contracts at issue. One was a bond contract, item number 6, and I requested that a signed copy of that contract be attached to that item. That was one of the reasons that they were asking us to nunc-pro-tunc those bond things earlier, so we're trying to shore that up. Another contract related to the DEQ grant, I believe, and that was item number 21. I requested a signed version of the contract be implemented there. And there was one other contract, and that was item number 26, which was the brick fire contract that we substitute a signed version of that contract for the official minutes. Yes.
And all of that is...
Those are March 1st. March 1st.
And you were satisfied with the changes that have been incorporated to the minutes as presented?
Correct.
Okay.
Because Ms. Outlaw is saying she's going to substitute the
We
signed
don't have the
versions.
signed contract yet. They hadn't been executed.
Okay.
Well, they're down at the state level, and they got to send them back.
And they'll be
So,
inserted prior to my signature going in the book?
That's correct.
Okay. Discussion.
Mayor, I move approval of the March 1st, 2011 minutes with the corrections as provided.
Alderman Corey's made a motion to approve of the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Alderman of the City of Starkville held on March 1st, 2011 with the corrections as provided. Alderman Corey, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Corey, do you wish to speak on the matter?
Do not.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the approval of the minutes from the recess meeting on March 15, 2011. Attorney Latimer.
There were 3 proposed corrections to those minutes. On item number 18, the alderman vote was missing, and the alderman vote was also missing on items 21 and item number 24.
Discussion.
They have been corrected.
Oh, okay. In that case, I would move approval of the March 15th, 2011 minutes with the corrections as provided by the city clerk.
Alderman Corey has made a motion to approve of the minutes from the recess meeting of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville held on March 15, 2011 with the corrections as provided by the city clerk. Alderman Corey, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Parker. Alderman Corey, do you wish to speak on the matter?
Do not.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And that will carry us to comments by the mayor and board. And I have several comments tonight. The first is I'd just like to notify everybody of some of the great work that's going on in our Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. One of the benefits of the grant program that they are participating in is they have received 50 recycling containers that are available to be placed around town. So if you have a location that you think would be an ideal place for one of those containers to be placed, please contact Sharon Boyd at the Sanitation Department. I'd also like to announce that they have begun work on 4 service commercials that are going to tout our recycling program and hopefully garner more participation in the program in the future. So lots to be excited about on the recycling front. It is now my pleasure to make a very special presentation to Doug Devlin of our Public Services Department, and I'm going to present Doug with several commendations to be distributed in his department. This is for 2 full years of no lost time within the Public Services Department. And this is quite an accomplishment. As most of you know, the work done by the Public Services Department is not always easy or completely safe work. So to go for 2 full years using the safety training that they have without losing any time and efficiently performing their jobs is something we can all be proud of. It is now my pleasure to introduce 6 new employees to the city of Starkville. And if our new employees can begin to come forward, I'd like to give a little background as to why we're introducing 6 employees tonight, because that is an abnormal number of employees for us to introduce. As many of you may know, we have undergone changes in our Sanitation and Environmental Services Department to bring services that were previously outsourced in-house, which has resulted in us being able to hire additional personnel, actually at cost savings to the city, and it also allows us more flexibility and control over our rubbish pickup, which I think the citizens will grow to appreciate. With that said, it is my pleasure to introduce each of our new employees to you. And first I'd like to introduce Glenn Hayes, who has joined the department as a driver. Glenn is originally from Jackson, Mississippi, and has lived in Starkville for the past 10 years. He attended Provine High School. Before joining the city of Starkville, Glenn worked at Mississippi Materials Company as a driver for 8 years. When Glenn isn't busy working, he enjoys fishing and playing video games. Glenn has 5 children: Jeremiah, Joel, Jasmine, Jalen, and Adrian. Please join me in welcoming Glenn. Our second new employee is also a driver. Please join me in saying hello to Daryl Jordan. Daryl is originally from Los Angeles, California, and has lived in Starkville for 20 years. Daryl attended Manual Arts High School. Before joining the city of Starkville, Daryl previously worked for Triangle Maintenance and for Mississippi Industrial Waste as a driver. When he isn't busy working, Daryl enjoys fishing and relaxing. He has 5 children: Keisha, Orion, twins Jalen and Jaden, and Lamaya. They attend First John Baptist Church. Please join me in welcoming them. Now I'd like to introduce Chad Robinson. And Chad has been hired as a laborer. He is from Starkville and graduated from Starkville High School. Go Jackets. Before joining the city of Starkville, Chad worked at Fast Break as a cashier. When he isn't busy, Chad enjoys football. Chad and his family attend New Zion United Methodist Church. Please join me in welcoming. Now I'd like to introduce Carvez Ellis, who has also joined the department as a laborer. He is from Starkville and has lived here his entire life. He attended Starkville High School and worked at Flex Steel Industry as an upholsterer and a dispatcher. He worked there for 9 years. Carvez and his wife Crystal have 2 children, Carly and Colin. They attend Mount Pelier Missionary Baptist Church. Please join me in welcoming Carvez. I'd now like to introduce Stephen Lane, who was also hired as a laborer. He is originally from Ware, Mississippi, and attended Ware High School. Stephen has lived in Starkville for the past 5 years. Stephen previously worked at Lowe's in their garden department. He has his wife Naomi and 4 children, Micaiah, Maisha, Stephanie, and Elijah. They attend Penderville United Methodist Church. Please join me in welcoming Stephen. And last but certainly not least, we would like to welcome Theodis Weaver to the city of Starkville. Theodis was recently hired as a laborer. He is from Starkville and loves living here. He attended Moore High School and East Mississippi Community College and studied heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Before joining the city of Starkville, Theodis worked at Green Tree Apartments in maintenance. When he isn't busy working, Theodis likes to go fast. He enjoys racing bikes, cars, and anything else that goes fast, as long as it's on a track. Theodis and his wife have a 4-year-old daughter, Michaela, and attend Blackjack Church. Theodis' dad, also named Theodis, is a City of Starkville employee in our drinking water division of the Public Services Department. Please give a big round of applause to Theodis and all of them. All right. And I have no further comments. We have one scheduled comment by the member of the board tonight, and that is recognition of the Employee of the Month by Alderman Court.
All right, I have the special honor of announcing our Employee of the Month for March of 2011, and that employee is Stephen Jones. Officer Jones was hired in October of 2010 as a police officer with the Starkville Police Department. He was accepted into the 233rd Basic Law Enforcement class at the Mississippi Law Enforcement Officers Training Academy on January 7, 2011. Officer Jones recently graduated from the academy as company commander for his class. Officer Jones was given the responsibility of ensuring 69 other officers carried out their duties to the best of their abilities. He was chosen for this prestigious honor because of his hard work, proven leadership skills, and his dedication to law enforcement. Officer Jones is the first officer from the Starkville Police Department to be chosen as company commander. It is the devotion to law enforcement by officers like Officer Jones that makes the Starkville Police Department one of the best departments in the state of Mississippi. The City of Starkville is proud to recognize Officer Stephen Jones as Employee of the Month for March 2011 and wish him the best as he begins his new career in law enforcement.
You run with you.
Do we have any further comments by the members of the board? Any further comments by the members of the board? Any further comments? Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll now move to citizens' comment. Any citizen wishing to make comments this evening may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Good evening to the mayor and board. My name is Alvin Turner, Ward 7. I want to recognize Vice Mayor Citron and Alderman Vaughn.
Thank you, Alvin.
Citizens have a few things. Times are hard, and we would just like to know our at $13 for sanitation in 12 months, that would be a total of what? The election coming up for the Board of Alderman, we would like to know about the redistricting lines in our polling precinct. Will we be operating under the old lines, or will we be operating under the new line? It's very important to us.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Further citizen comments?
I'm James Richard Simpson. I've lived here for 68 years. I want to talk about that Oddfellow Cemetery. I made a bad mistake on doing that. I come in here in 1997 and buried the son in there. That thing was growed up, awful shape. I got in there with a chainsaw and started cutting and cleaning it up. Ms. Eve MacArthur come over and asked me, was I working with the city? I told her, no, ma'am, I wasn't. She told me she tried to get the city to come over and clean it up and couldn't get you to come over and clean it up. So I started cleaning that thing up and stayed over there 3 to 4 months cleaning on that side. Going all the way down through there, poison the fence and everything. What made that thing look so bad is the city. And while I was over there, I saw a lot going on. You wonder why the light poles in there? I'll tell you. There was drugs going on in there. They were coming over there to parties. Me and my wife would go over there late at night and sit on the concrete benches that we put in there while my son was dying. And seeing all this going on. Then I'd come back in there the next day and have to pick all that garbage up. Beer bottles, sacks, paper plates, and all. I'd done that for a long time. Then my wife, that whole section over there is my family. The Riches and the Simpsons. When I started cutting that stuff, Larry Bell and Bill Webb come over there. Told me, these people are not going to like you getting in here and cutting all this thing. Well, you'll be surprised. The old ladies that come in there and ask me, is I working for the city? I said, no, ma'am. Francis Langfeld, Mrs. Shook, and another lady asked me that. Well, I come down there and cut all this out for them because they couldn't get y'all to do anything. Well, I done that for them. And then the cemetery committee come in there one Saturday, and so I did start working in there. And I did that. I worked with them and got all that straightened up. I didn't see any one of y'all over there in that cemetery working and getting it straight back, especially you, Dumas. I hadn't seen you over there. I don't know what made you want to take a fence down. But if the fence is not pretty, if you didn't like, talk to the cemetery committee. Talk to somebody that's got a family in there that don't want that garbage back in there. And the tombstone, the headstone's broke. Because a U-Haul truck come in there while I was there, broke the markers down, the headstones. The people on that side, no relatives living. They helped them to put them markers back, headstones up. We put them things back, paste them back up, put steel plates on them. Is that time up?
No, it's 1 minute.
Well, I got a long time to go. I'll have to come back next year. I'm not getting on y'all, but I'm just trying to tell you what that fence done. It kept garbage out of there and people coming in and tearing all that stuff up. And I saw kids come in there and kick them and break them, and we repaired those headstones that got broke. I just wonder if the city's going to be the ones that's going to repair them this time, if that fence down. Who's going to pay for these things that gets broke in there? Stealing? I had a bench, a concrete bench. I put 3 of them over there. One of them is completely gone. Just last month, I put 3 flowers on my wife's, my mother's, my son's. In a week's time, they was took up and gone. I called Florence Box and told her important, and it didn't get nowhere. And Mrs. MacArthur, you were supposed to, David Lynn was supposed to lock the fence. Is that 3 minutes? Supposed to lock the gates up. Is that it?
That's time.
Okay, I'll be back to talk to y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Richards.
Thank y'all letting me come in here and talk to y'all.
Yes, sir.
I'm not mad at y'all or nothing. I'm just trying to tell you what goes on over there.
Mr. Mayor and Board of Alderman, good to see all y'all tonight. My name is David Jackson, and I'm here tonight to represent the responsible development of Starkville. And also with me is Wes Shelton and Slate Cracker. They have all sit on the board with me. RDS is an organized nonprofit corporation established last year around March by local members of the construction and development trade, representing 64 individuals and business interests in Octavia County. We believe that the common good and the growth of Starkville can be greatly improved by the city of Starkville and the construction industry working closer together. We propose to create a common goal and a team effort between the city of Starkville and the construction industry through improving codes, ordinances, rules, regulations, and communications. To this end, we encourage our members to serve on boards, committees, and organizations designed to accomplish our goals. The members of RDS are in favor of hiring the Placemakers Group for the benefit of the city of Starkville. We believe their input for formed base codes for the overlay district is invaluable and will actually promote economic growth in the downtown area by providing the basis for codes and ordinance designed specifically for this area. Once implementation is successful, additional codes could be developed for other areas of the town, bridging the gaps into a more comprehensive, cohesively developed city. We as a group feel that the continued investment in our downtown area will only further growth Starkville's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. We have further citizen comment.
I'm Kathleen Hamby, and I'm representing the Starkville Central Neighborhood Foundation. And I'd like to read a letter that has been sent to all the city officials. On March 26, 2011, the Starkville Central Neighborhood Foundation hosted the inaugural historic Stark Vegas race. On behalf of the Stakville Board, I would like to take this opportunity to extend our gratitude to the police officers who were critical in making this day a great success. The officers were out in force protecting the race participants from traffic and helping to keep the runners on course. Furthermore, the extraordinary support and encouragement they gave to each racer cannot be overstated. Chris Thomas, Brooke Manigold, Julius Gamby, Bubba Willard, Chad Williams, Gabriel Hernandez, Jonathan Headley, and Brandon Gann were all exemplary in their activities associated with this event. These officers are a tremendous asset to our community, and Stakville cannot thank them enough. In particular, Captain Thomas was professional in our planning efforts. He met with members of our organizing committee prior to the race, provided them with his cell phone number, and came in on his day off to help with the event. We wish these officers the best and thank them and the city of Starkville for supporting Stakville. And I'm just going to give letters to each officer expressing our thanks and a little t-shirt from our event.
Thank you, Ms. Hamby. Further citizen comments? Do we have any further citizen comments?
Michael Queeson from Ward 5. I see recycling's back before the board. And again, I'm just concerned, is that program costing us money or saving us money? I'd like to see an audit, and I'd like to see the cost of the grants included as part of the cost of the money of that audit. If recycling is costing us money, we need to quit doing it. It's likely harming our environment if it's costing us money, if you believe in global warming. Hauling our garbage, our recycling rather, to Tupelo instead of burying it in West Point may be causing global warming with the fumes of the trucks. And if we're not picking up enough recycling as the trucks run around town, we're causing global warming. So we may feel we're improving the environment, but usually if something's costing you more, it's also harming the environment. I went out last time when on the Tuesday night, Wednesday morning in my area, there were very few bags out. Also, I've looked at this sign ordinance. If we can have such an onerous and restrictive sign ordinance, I don't know why we cannot require recycling if we're going to perform the service. If we're going to perform the service, I think then we need to do like we do to the business owners, to every citizen. Maybe they vote, maybe they're voters is why we don't require them to do things. Also, but if we can require businesses, owners, things where the first paragraph states that this ordinance is constitutional, which our lawyers, then I think if we're going to do recycling, it's going to cost us money, then we need to mandate it. Not in a nasty way, but let's get the numbers up to like 50% participation if we're going to run that truck around town spewing diesel fumes everywhere. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you, Mr. O'Queese. Further citizen comment? Do we have any further citizen comment? Any further citizen comment? Seeing none, we'll move to public appearances, and we have one public appearance scheduled tonight. That is by Dr. Dwight Harding, presenting information on a construction project located on Loomis Street. And Dr. Harding, you will have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and then after that, the board may have some questions or comments.
I just took my 5-minute presentation and cut it to 3 when I heard 3 minutes. And each one of you should have a package, spiral bound, black, with pictures. This is blow up of the picture. This is Robert Stringer from Roseman Architect that helped me with these drawings. The first, let me just show you the proposed project, and the bottom, I'll get to the bottom line at the end. I want to make Starkville a little bit greener, and I found a way to do it with this project. The top pictures are the 4 different views of the building I proposed. It's just 2 2-bedroom apartments. The next line is a streetscape. This is existing buildings, and this is where I live, right next door to what I want to build. And then on the bottom line is the top view of the proposed parking from the street. And what I would like to do is this. And let me just get the blow up of the parking. And this is where the green is going to come in. I want to start from the street, like all the parking down on Loomis, up and down. There are pictures in the back of your packet that I gave you. All the parking is starting from the street, measured back to 18 feet. Okay. What I want to do is this: measure 5 feet for the sidewalk, and then start my parking there, and measure the 18 feet. And what that will do is this: give me 4 extra feet for green space. Okay, that's all. That's all I'm asking is let me use the extra 4 feet for a yard. This is a
still placing the building on
25-foot setback is still in place. No other building in that whole area is, even the one I'm living in is closer to the street than the 25. I don't want to change the building. All I want to do is use, it is 5 feet from the sidewalk, put the sidewalk in. There, eventually in the life of the world, there's going to be sidewalks on either side of that. I got no problem. Let me put the sidewalk in. And I'm here for approval, hopefully, of being able to start my parking measurement from the sidewalk and give me 4 extra feet of green at the end.
Dr. Harding, I trust that the board is in agreement, but I can tell you for sure, it's my statement that it looks like you have some wonderful plans of something that could ultimately benefit Starkville a great deal. But there are processes that these things have to move through, and the important thing is that you move through the site plan process, and then our staff will work with you to let you know if there's any.
And I did, and they sent me here.
Yeah. Ben put us through Board of Alderman.
Well, I think maybe y'all had a discussion, and you were asking for something that may have not been permissible within the code, and I think what he may have said is you'll need to go to the Board of Alderman.
This is all I've asked for.
Yeah.
I've asked for it to measure the parking after the sidewalk.
I had a conversation with Mr. Griffith today, and my understanding is that this has not been through a site plan yet. Mr. Griffith, is that correct?
The plan that y'all are looking at has not been seen by the Development Review Committee. We've seen other plans, but not this particular plan.
Okay, so that's what you need to do. You need to go and work through the development review process.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And that will conclude our public appearances for the evening and carry us to public hearings. And we have 2 public hearings scheduled for the evening. The first is the 3rd public hearing on the City of Starkville Sidewalk Ordinance 2009-07 and the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98, Article 3, Construction and Maintenance of Public Sidewalks, to include a variance process and the requirements for granting a variance and other related purposes. Are there any board members wishing to make introductory comments? Alderman Dillon.
I'll talk about it. Since this is the 3rd public hearing, I'm not going to go through the details of it, other than just say that the meat of the variance process obviously is on 10.3, which is 6 of 9, page 6 of 9. Again, this variance is a process that will go through the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. And through that, it is incumbent on the development side to prove that 2 times the average rate of documented construction is being exceeded by this project. We feel that that's an objective aspect of what's happening there. The others, changes have been clearly enumerated, and I don't want to belabor an issue that we've talked about over and over again. So that's, and I want to open it up. Chris or Jim, do y'all either want to say anything about this?
Yeah, let's hear from the members of the board, and then we'll hear introductory comments from the Transportation Committee. Are there any further introductory comments from the members of the board?
One thing I want to do is, if I can, ask the city attorney, we've spoken before the last meeting, about performance bonds. Is that something, maybe, I don't know if it's time, if this is the right time, performance bonds totally legal? Is that something we could put in an ordinance for this? And
Yes, I researched that, and there's no prohibition of putting in a performance bond, as you proposed, to mark time until sidewalks approach the land in question.
what the idea with that was, if you say we're developing something at this time, you could either have the option of A, to put the money, or A, to construct the sidewalk, or B, put it in a performance bond, and that way, my fear with the way this is written now is I am for sidewalks, but my opinion is you'll have that scattered approach to sidewalks. And you see that in Starkville now. You see a piece here, and then the closest section of sidewalk being 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. With a performance bond, you can have more of a strategic, plan to have the connectors, and it may be years down the road before one sidewalk triggered lengths of sidewalks being installed at the same time. But my fear is that, again, if it is the way it is now, the variance process is written to a point that it's almost too, there can be hardly anybody, I guess, that'll get to the variance process and be granted the way it's written. So I can't be in favor of it. And I think the way what's going to happen now is you'll have 20 to 30 years of scattered sidewalks throughout Starkville instead of more of an approach which all sidewalks are connected at the same time. So I feel like this is good work, but maybe it's not the best time to adopt it. Maybe include something with performance bonds. So.
Are there any further introductory comments from the members of the board? Any further introductory comments? Any further introductory comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, we'll now hear introductory comments from the members of the Transportation Committee.
Hi, thank you, everybody. Representing the Transportation Committee, we just want to thank you guys for putting this on the agenda and for having the public hearings. I want to just remind you of a couple of little facts. I think you guys know the details of the proposed amendment. I wanted to point out that that we did public discussions with the public, and we got input from probably 100 plus citizens between all the various different open meetings that we had. And we did some consultation with the developer community as well. So I just wanted to sort of say that I think that this is a good variance process. It keeps the sidewalk ordinance strong, and I hope you guys will approve this amendment. So.
Are there any further introductory comments from the members of the Transportation Committee? Any further comments from the members of the Transportation Committee? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the public comment portion of the public hearing, and we will hold this public comment portion in keeping with standard practice, which is that each side will be allotted those in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment and those against the ordinance amendment will be allotted a total of 15 minutes. And each speaker wishing to make comments will be given a maximum of 3 minutes. We'll start with those in favor and then alternate hearing a speaker for and a speaker against until such time as both sides have exhausted their 15-minute total allotted time or no one else wishes to speak. Do we now have anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one, is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance amendment?
Good evening, to the board. My name is Alvin, Ward 7. The citizens of Ward 7 and Ward 6. we beg and borrow to pay our taxes, and we get the short end of everything. We don't know whether Jim Wade do our disability claims or not, but we need some lawyers that if we get broke up or get hurt, we'll be compensated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone now wishing to speak in favor of the proposed amendment? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the proposed amendment?
Michael Queeson, Ward 5. Again, I don't understand why sidewalks aren't going to be required in residential areas. If anywhere a sidewalk's required, needed, or could be used is in residential areas. And the exemption for residential areas, I do not know the legal basis on it. What is the reasoning why residential areas are not going to be required to? That commercial places are, but residential places are not? That, if anywhere, I would have it the other way around. That residential areas need sidewalks. People definitely walk there. And again, I can only think someone's gone out and counted the votes.
Thank you, Mr. O'Queeson. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak for, against, or indifferent to the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no one, that will conclude the public comment portion of our public hearing, and we'll move back into comments by the members of the board. Do we have any concluding comments from the board members? Any comments? Any comments from the members of the board? Or any comments from the members?
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your health care needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in health care.
Seeing none, we'll move to our second public hearing scheduled for this evening, which is the second public hearing on amending the City of Starkville Sign Ordinance 2008-10 and City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, Section C, signs to include modifications to the allowed size, rights-of-way signage, and amortization of existing non-conforming signs and for other related purposes. Do we have any members of the board wishing to make introductory comments? Alderman Dimmons.
I believe Alderman Parker introduced this the last time, and he went through every item. So as with the sidewalk ordinance, this is about the 6th or 7th public hearing we've had for this particular item. But several things are being changed, some just small little language changes. There are some slight changes on the size requirements. Obviously, the biggest change in this whole thing was the part that really set it off, and those were the off-site signs and allowing 501c3s to have those off-site signs. And that's listed under the directional signs, which is section 13. And then obviously another one is section 18, which is the amortization of non-conforming signs. That's a 10-year period for pole signs. So those in and of itself are the two most substantial changes, other than some small additions of definitions and then clarifying some other language through just some semantic issues. So that's basically it, and I'll leave it at that.
Do we have further introductory comments from the members of the board?
And I guess I should say this too as well. The document that was given to you by Ms. Spruill at the beginning of the meeting is a clean version. This is just for your information, a clean version of this ordinance with the changes that City Attorney Latimer suggested. And I've got those changes. Those were sent to the board yesterday. And just to go over those, in the definition of directional signs, we've changed, or we've put the word public back in front of buildings, so just a small little change there. And then we've restated paragraph A to say the following: directional signs shall be allowed to direct the reader to the locations of public institutions, historical areas, emergency shelters, public parks, public buildings. Again, just a small little clarification of language. And then in section 13, we have stricken the extra, we had a redundant "from the" in the second sentence. So those are three just small changes that are in the clean version that will be discussed under board business as we take this for consideration of adoption.
And Alderman Dumas, let me just tag that real quick. The only reason for that change was to make the definition match up with the action item in 13A, to make sure they were identical and said everything that the ordinance intends that it say.
So with the section 13A in relevance with the faith-based, churches and things like that, is that definition correct now?
Yeah, everything's included in 13A.
Okay. Can I have one?
Yep.
Again, with the sign amortization, that's probably my only hang-up or catch with this. If you were to take that out of this ordinance, I'd probably support it 100%. I've had some, I had one prominent business owner today call and said, he has over $140,000 worth of signs in the city of Starkville. Can you imagine that? I mean, these are tough times, and making a man change a sign that has no direct benefit to his business, and at the end of the day, that's just money out of their pocket. So I can't support that in principle. Other than that, I think that this is sets precedent for the bypass sign definition and the development of signs out in the bypass area. I think it's good work, but with amortization, no way, no how I can support that. And then the second thing was in section 20 of the enforcement, section D says that non-compliance or non-payment of fines by business owners may result in suspension or the city privilege license. So that's placing the responsibility on the person that owns a business. But then let's say that an individual here, has a strip mall or has a owns 20 businesses or 5 businesses in town, whatever, and then E, it says, so that D, it's kind of fuzzy on the definition. D says that it'll be placed on the actual business owner, and then E says ultimately the property owner shall be responsible. So there you go, if the fine hasn't been collected within 90 days. So again, I think if you're having issues or sign problems with the business owner, I think the business owner should be ultimately held responsible. It's not the property owner's fault that the tenant's not taking care of the sign or taking it down, or in the case of amortization, not changing the sign. So those are the two issues I have with that, and I'll be voting against this tonight.
Further introductory comments from the members of the board. We have further introductory comments from the members of the board. Any further introductory comments? Seeing none, we'll move to the public comment portion of the public hearing, and we will use the same process that I just outlined moments ago, so I won't make you go through that again. At this time, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed sign ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one, is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance amendment?
Good evening, my name is Alvin Turner, Ward 7. With time tough as it is, we need to get a rock solid our definition of our what we want to do and how we want to do it. People do not want to print up signs and then try to put them out and they wrong. Election time is coming up. people do not want print sign, and they wrong. And don't know whether you can run or not, but then they gonna be upset with whoever. You know, give us a definition of what you want and make it solid.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Do we have any further, or excuse me, do we now have anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak against?
Michael Queeson, Ward 5. I've been here while this thing's been debated back and forth for the 5 or 6, 7 times. I've never gone and read it till about a week ago. Section 1, purpose and intent. The purpose and intent of these regulations is to create the legal framework for a comprehensive and balanced system of signage to improve and enhance aesthetic environment of the city and to avoid the visual clutter that is potentially harmful to traffic and the appearance of the community. The mayor and board of aldermen of the city of Starkville find that the regulations set forth herein would improve the visual appearance of the city by limiting the number and size of signs within the corporate limits, consistent with constitutional guarantees, while continuing to provide an effective means of communication. It self-declares that it's constitutional. I don't think that's going to help it. You get in here, it has window signs, but they can only be so much of a window. Are we enforcing that today? I've visited, I'm not going to speak who, because they're businesses I frequent, and they violate that. What seems to be stated in here about window signs. There's signs that put on the side of vehicles. You can only have a sign on the side of your vehicle while you're making deliveries. If a plumber goes to eat lunch, he has to take his sign off of his truck. There are many things in here that I understand the purpose of them, but they're hard to state. My family's dealt with the law that has gone before the U.S. Supreme Court. And Thurgood Marshall said, well, I see the law is constitutional. I see no constitutional way to enforce this law. And that was a law trying to keep students out of residences. So I beg people, read this document. It's onerous. It's 20 pages. Do we need 20 pages to tell people what signs we need and don't need in this town? I think the thing should be repealed, not amended.
Thank you, Mr. O'Quist. Do we have anyone now wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Is there now anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to speak for, against, or indifferent to the proposed ordinance amendment?
My name is Reagan Ford, and I have a optical place on Highway 12. And about four or 5 years ago, I spent a pretty good bit of money on a nice sign that was designed to go with the size of the building, the height, and everything for it. And I've tried to get from different people what the ordinance is, and nobody can. They said it's in the 20-page understanding. And so I'm not a lawyer, but if there's so much trouble with it right now, and I've talked to a lot of guys that have signs up, and not too many of them are against dropping the signs. It's the cost involved with it. I don't know if I could even, if I drop mine down, I think that the size of it would have to be altered to be aesthetically appealing, because it's up about ever how many feet you can put it up. And I think you need to think about people that are in business. It's nice to have a pretty community, but people that are paying taxes, and a lot of them paying taxes, you're taxing them again on something that you want to make something pretty. And the people that I've talked to, none of them are really against the ordinance as long as they don't have to move their sign down. And that's kind of the way I am. And I'd like an answer is, if you've got one that met specifications, does it have to come down? Can anybody tell me that? And who's going to pay the cost?
Let me answer that after we finish the public comment.
Okay,
portion.
so I'm through.
Yeah, this portion's just for
All right,
comment.
good. All right.
Anyone else wishing to speak on the matter? Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no one, that will conclude the public comment portion of the public hearing, and we'll move back into concluding comments from the members of the board. Before we do that, I will answer the question that was just posed by Dr. Ford. And what this does, we have an existing sign ordinance that places height and dimensional regulations on signs in Starkville. What the amortization period would do is it would say all signs in the city of Starkville, whether they were existing before the ordinance passed or not, would have to comply with those regulations in 10 years. Now, 10 years is a long time, and a lot of people may scratch their head and say, why would you pass something that doesn't actually take effect for 10 years? And it's actually to get precisely to the point you just made, which is the city recognizes that people, in some instances, have invested quite a bit of money in those signs. And there may be some cost in bringing the signs into conformity with the new standard of the ordinance. So rather than saying tomorrow or 30 days from now, everybody has to be in compliance, whatever the cost is. This says if you had a sign that was existing prior to the passage of these regulations in 2006, you'll have until the year 2021 to actually come fully into compliance with them. Do we have further concluding comments by the members of the board?
Does that answer your question, Dr. Ford?
Yeah, it does. I just, that still doesn't take care of the monetary issue of it. I mean, I was sitting there trying to look at the signs, driving back and forth. There's going to be some money spent. Has there been any talk about offset the taxes? Where if somebody has to spend, say, $10,000, $13,000, $14,000 and giving them a 50, 25, 75% break, if everybody wants to see it beautiful, then spend the money on it.
The city actually went so far as to get an attorney general's opinion, inquiring as to whether the city could provide tax credits to offset the cost to a business of making the sign conform with the regulations. And the attorney general's office gave us a resounding no. So that leaves us pretty much with no option as far as providing a tax incentive to come in compliance with the ordinance. And that's why this, which was originally a 7-year amortization period, was extended to a 10-year amortization period. The thought being, if businesses plan now, that gives you longer to work the cost when it comes into your annual budget. Alderman Sister.
I'd like to make one comment too. When we talk about aesthetics in the ordinance, we're not talking about just a prettier Starkville. It's a large part of that is an economic development issue. We were one of 2 finalists for the relocation of an industry to Starkville within the last year. And one of the reasons that they cited for not choosing Starkville was the appearance of the community. So it's not just a prettier Starkville. This is an economic development issue as well.
Further concluding comments by the members of the board. Do we have any further concluding comments by the members of the board? Any further concluding comments? Seeing none, that will conclude the second public hearing on the amendment of the sign ordinance. And that will move us into board business. And the first matter on the agenda for board business this evening is the discussion regarding the Carver Drive ditch. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be very brief. I think we've had enough preliminary discussion about the Carver Drive ditch. Everyone knows where it is. I'm going to just bypass all of the discussion and get to the meat of it. And I'm going to offer a motion, Mr. Mayor, that the city proceed with the scope of work for the Carver Drive ditch that would provide for the closure of the ditch, that a sum of $65,500 be designated, committed, and dedicated to the Carver Drive ditch for the 2011 calendar year, that the city staff proceed with doing all the necessary work to acquire the necessary federal, state, and any other approval with that ditch. The sum of $65,500 will include the two requirements that have been imposed. I think that total $15,500. And if there are any extenuating circumstances that preclude the work being done on the Carver Drive ditch for the 2011 calendar year, that the $65,500 that is being dedicated, designated, earmarked will roll over for the Carver Drive ditch for the 2012 calendar year. And that is my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
You want me to restate it?
Let me give it a try, and then you correct me where I don't get it as you
All right.
stated it.
Okay.
And you have a good copy of it.
I'll say it again for me.
Okay. Alderman Perkins has made a motion to proceed with the scope of work to provide $65,000 for the closure of
$65,500, I'm sorry.
$65,500 for the closure of the Carver Drive ditch. The city staff will proceed with necessary work to comply with all state and federal requirements. Any work not being completed during the 2011 year shall result in funds being rolled over into the 2012 fiscal year. Alderman Perkins, is that your motion?
Primarily, but it'll roll over for the Carver Drive ditch. That's primarily. The clerk, you recorded my dictation, right? Clerk.
Yes.
Okay, all right, but you're close, Mayor. But
Any
we're
funds,
good.
so the last part of that would be any funds not expended on the Carver Drive ditch project in the 2011 year will be rolled over for the Carver Drive ditch project in the 2012 fiscal year.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Corey. Alderman Perkins, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Alderman Carver.
Just kind of refresh me on this. This is a budgeted. Is this something we've got the funds to do?
Yes, and I see the budget committee's hand coming up, so I'm going to let her field
Go
that.
ahead with your question. Go ahead with your question.
I'll answer that one, and I got to know.
The bulk of it is budgeted or will be handled through the capital improvement plan that the city engineer is going to present later this afternoon. I think later this evening we are now. I think it's 43,000 that you have budgeted for improvements and studies.
That's right.
Which leaves.
43,500.
And this will require an additional 22 or 23,000. I don't have the numbers exactly at my fingertips, but an additional $22,000 or $23,000 to be funded out of the contingency fund. We budgeted $100,000 in the contingency fund. So far, we have committed $25,000 for South Montgomery tonight, and less than $20,000 in other small projects, board travel, shuttle, that sort of thing. So this would bring the amount of the contingency fund that we have committed to projects to This will bring the amount that we've committed to around 65 to 70, a little over $65,000. I'm not adding in my head very well, so, but about 65,000. We had budgeted 100,000 in contingency funds, so it can be fundable from there.
Alderman Carter.
So the total on this is about 65 for,
Between the capital improvement plan and the portion that would come out of contingency.
okay. Well, just like Alderman Perkins, I'm gonna be in favor of this, but, from a housekeeping matter, from a housekeeping point, just maybe to have something more than one word or one sentence, have some kind of motion beforehand. We can look at this with the finances for this actual item on the agenda, a little vague. So if we could get more information next time before we vote on something, for $65,000 request.
Further discussion? Any further discussion by the members of the board? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll now move into a roll call vote on Alderman Perkins' motion, which has been previously stated and I will not restate at this time. Please answer yea, nay, or abstain as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver,
Yay.
Alderman Sistrum,
Yay.
Alderman Parker,
Yay.
Alderman Corr,
Yay.
Alderman Dumas,
Yay.
Alderman Perkins,
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
By a vote of 7 in favor with 0 against, this measure clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the approval of amending the City of Starkville Sidewalk Ordinance 2009-07 and the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98, Article 3, Construction and Maintenance of Public Sidewalks to include a variance process and the requirements for granting a variance and other related purposes. Discussion. Alderman Dennis.
Considering this has been debated quite a bit, I move approval of amending the City of Starkville Sidewalk Ordinance 2009-07 and the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98, Article 3, Construction and Maintenance of Public Sidewalks to include a variance process and the requirements for granting a variance and other related purposes.
And is that as presented in the
As
document
presented
you
in the
referenced on the
document.
table earlier?
That is correct.
Alderman Dumas, or wait, I'm
No,
sorry, I
that's
pulled the
the-
wrong
that's-
document.
sorry.
That's as presented in the packet.
In the packet.
Alderman Dumas has made a motion to approve of amending the City of Starkville Sidewalk Ordinance 2009-07 and the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98, Article 3, Construction and Maintenance of Public Sidewalks to include a variance process and the requirements for granting a variance and other related purposes as presented in the packet. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Sistrunk. Alderman Dumas, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll now move into a vote on Alderman Dumas's motion as previously stated. Please respond by saying yea, nay, or abstain as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Sistrum,
Yay.
Alderman Parker,
Yay.
Alderman Corr,
Yay.
Alderman Dumas,
Yay.
Alderman Perkins,
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn,
Nay.
Alderman Carver,
Nay.
By a vote of 4 in favor with 3 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of amending the City of Starkville Sign Ordinance 2008-10 and the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, Section C, signs to include modifications to the allowed size, rights-of-way signage, and amortization of existing non-conforming signs and for other related purposes. Discussion? Alderman Dumas.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval as presented in the packet, or as presented at the table prior to the meeting.
Alderman Dumas has made a motion to approve of the amending of the City of Starkville Sign Ordinance 2008-10 and the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, Section C, signs to include modifications to the allowed size, right-of-way signage, and amortization of existing non-conforming signs and other related purposes as presented on the table at tonight's meeting. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Sistrunk. Alderman Dumas, do you wish to speak on the merits?
I do not.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, please answer yea. We'll now move into a roll call vote. Please answer yea, nay, or abstain on Alderman Dumas's motion as previously stated as the city clerk calls you next.
Alderman Parker,
Nay.
Alderman Corey,
Yay.
Alderman Dumas,
Yay.
Alderman Perkins,
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn,
Nay.
Alderman Carver,
Nay.
Alderman Sistrunk,
Yay.
By a vote of 4 in favor with 3 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of making appointments to fill the vacancies created by expiring terms on the Transportation Committee and the vacancy on the Disability Committee. Alderman Sistrunk.
I'd like to express my thanks to everybody who's considered volunteering their time for these important positions and all the people who are currently volunteering their time. For the Commission on Disability, I would like to nominate Jerry McInvale and Tiffany Hamlin. We have 2 vacancies. They are not ward-specific, and I would like to make those nominations. And for the Transportation Committee, I would like to nominate Chris Gottfried for Ward 2. Chris currently serves on the Transportation Committee. And with Alderman Perkins' permission, I would like to nominate Dorothy Isaacs, who currently serves on the Transportation Committee for Ward 6.
All right, Alderman Sistrunk has made a motion to make the following appointments.
Ward 6.
To,
I'm sorry, and also Ward 4, Dennis Nordine. Thank you.
Alderman Sistrunk has made a motion to make the following appointments. To the Commission on Disability, Jerry McInvale and Tiffany Hamlin. And to the Transportation Committee, Chris Gottfried, Dorothy Isaac, and Dennis Nordine. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Corey. Alderman Sistrunk, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Alderman Carver.
As far as the Ward 2 appointment to the Transportation Committee, you had the airport manager apply, and, I can think of a better candidate to tie in the aviation, the local airport, to the Transportation Committee. I agree with the other appointments, but with that, I can't see it better, you've got somebody with a lifetime of aviation, business background, transportation background, somebody that's out there at the airport every day that can bring that expertise to the table. And nothing against Mr. Gottfried, but just, somebody that's more experienced, more qualified, better candidate, literally a lifetime of transportation things they can bring to the table. So with that, I can't support that motion as it stands, but that's why I'll be voting against it.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll now move into a roll call vote on Alderman Sistrunk's motion as previously stated. Please answer yea, nay, or abstain as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Corey,
Yay.
Alderman Dumas,
Yay.
Alderman Perkins,
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn,
Nay.
Alderman Carver,
Nay.
Alderman Sistrunk,
Yay.
and Alderman Parker.
Nay.
By a vote of 4 in favor with 3 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is a report from the Budget Committee. Alderman Sistrunk?
The Budget Committee met earlier this, at the end of March, the Budget Committee met. We had Randy Scribner from Watkins Ward and Stafford there, who gave us a preliminary report on our financial statements. He will be presenting our audited financial statements at the next board meeting. And I don't want to steal his thunder, but we did have a clean audit, which is what you always hope for in an audit. And he was particularly complimentary of the record keeping that for this year from the city clerk's office. We also discussed and would like to recommend the approval of a budget amendment that essentially recognizes some revenues that were unbudgeted at the beginning of the year, particularly some grants that we've received, and to recognize the expenses that would be related to those unbudgeted revenues. It also reclassifies several expenses from one line item to another. This is something that we typically do a couple of times during the year with a large amendment at the end of the year, once we kind of know where we are with everything. Page 1 is mostly, of the budget amendment that you'll see, is mostly reclassifications. Page 2 will lead into the city engineer's presentation about the capital improvement plan, because it divvies up how the remaining bond funds are going to be spent. And then the last 2 items deal with unbudgeted grant funds. Having made that short report, and I know everybody glazes over when we start to talk about those sort of things, I would like to recommend the approval of the budget amendment as presented in our packet.
Alderman Sistrunk was that a motion?
It was.
Alderman Sistrunk has made a motion to approve of the budget amendment as presented in the packet. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Dumas. Alderman Sistrunk, you wish to speak on the merit?
No, thank you.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And please note that Carver and Vaughn were not present. The next matter on the agenda is the request for authorization to advertise for the 2011 Capital Improvement Budget Program projects. And we'll give the city engineer a couple of moments to finish the setup.
See if I can turn this row of lights off so you can see a little better. That's about as close as I'm gonna be able to get it. Good evening, Mayor and Board, and thank you for this opportunity. You have in your packet a copy of the proposed 2011 capital improvement budget, but tonight I just wanted to go over some of the highlights of that plan and offer you the opportunity to ask any questions, get any clarification on questions that you may have regarding the budget and the plan moving forward. What I'd like to do is briefly talk about the 10-year plan, as that is kind of the guiding plan for the capital improvement budget each year. Talk a little bit about where the funding is coming from this year, and then get into some of the specifics about the actual budget and the proposed projects as well. And I'll try to keep it brief because I know it's already been a long night. This, like I said, is the guiding document of what is guiding our capital improvement plan for the next several years, potentially 10 years. And this plan was developed last year when this board was looking at the ramifications of taking out another $3 million in general obligation bonds. What, if the board did that, what would that look like for the next 10 years as it relates to all of our capital improvement funding, and what does that snapshot look like each year? So we developed this plan, and basically goes by year. And what I want to do is briefly take you through the calculation of how we actually allocate money to each of the 3 different project types. The 3 different project types would be roadway maintenance, which are more known as overlays, a roadway rebuild, which is actually taking roads that had failed, that had insufficient base, and rebuilding those from the bottom up, similar to what we did to Hospital Road last year. And then the last is a drainage. And so if you would, just bear with me. Again, like I said, we're in year 2, so we're in the second year of the plan. As you can see, under the total yearly funding column, this is the leanest year that we are going to experience in the next year if this plan holds. One thing to note is that the total yearly funding for this year, and that is the amount that was budgeted as part of the fiscal year 10-11 budget, is actually $400,000 instead of $600,000. But just for the purposes of this calculation, we'll just keep going and just so you can see how these numbers were derived. What you do is you take that $600,000 and you reduce it by the yearly maintenance and predetermined obligation amount of $210,000. We developed that number based on these yearly items that we know we're going to need and that the board has approved in the past, and those are fixed fee items, if you will. It's not going to vary depending on if the funding increases or not. The sidewalk construction and improvement line, $20,000, is the line that improved Gillespie Street last year. The storm drainage maintenance, the $35,000, those are the funds that we use if we have collapsed storm pipes, replacing inlets that are damaged or broken. The ADA improvement, the $50,000 line, is what we used to repair many of the downtown curb cuts last year, as well as some of the parking signage improvements. And then the last is the STIP match. As you know, we receive an amount of funds from MDOT through the from the Federal Highway through MDOT on an annual basis. But part of that is they require the municipality to pay a match. So that amount, that $105,000 from last year, this year, and the next year will be used for the Louisville Street widening project, because the city will need to have a substantial amount of match. So once you reduce that yearly funding amount by $210,000, in this case leaves $490,000. And what you do is you take that remainder and multiply it by the three percentages that are located there. And I know, Mayor, you love the animation there. But essentially, the percentages that were set in years past are 65% is going to go toward overlays, 20% goes to to drainage, and 15% goes to roadway rebuild. That's the only math lesson of the day, so I apologize for that. This is where the money's coming from this year. And as I said, this board, when they approved this year's budget at the end of last fiscal year, it had $400,000 included for capital improvement projects. We have been very fortunate to realize approximately, in addition to that $400,000, about $510,000 from projects in the past couple of years that we have realized either a project underrun due to, for example, on Hospital Road, we received a very favorable asphalt price, and the project came in considerably less than anticipated. For example, on the drainage improvements, we realized some substantial savings there from using the permanent matting instead of riprap. So we had savings over the last couple of years that we've realized, and I have lumped those funds from those four accounts, which total $510, to the $400, which give us a total capital improvement budget of $910,000. So that really helps from our capital improvement standpoint. It made a lean year much better and able to do some of these projects. So again, the predetermined obligations, that $210 remains the same, even though the budget goes up. And then you multiply the remainder, which is $700,000, times the percentages mentioned previously, and you come up with the allocations there. This is the actual budget proposed for this year. And what I want to do is just kind of give an overview right now, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about each project type. But we have starting with the roadway maintenance, we have a budget of around $455,000. As you can see, to complete priority 3 and priority 4 is about $447,000. So we'll be less than that budget. Now, and I do need to say a caveat here, and that is pending asphalt prices. Nobody knows what they're going to do, but right now they're pretty stabilized. They're going to be comparable to last year, I would say, if it went out to bid today, but it's just so uncertain and so volatile, it's really anybody's guess. The drainage, talked a little bit about Carver Drive, and again, since that number has changed, that first line would go up by the additional 20 or 23,000, whatever that difference was there. As was discussed in your packet, the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency has recommended that we do a hydrologic and hydrology study as well as a LOMAR prior to any installation of or altering any channel. So I've included some funds for those. We've never done one of these before, so it is a little bit uncertain on what it's costing. That's why I've estimated that amount. Hollis 1, which we started last year, we got about halfway done. We'll finish that hopefully with the 43.5. Maple Drive, as everybody is aware of, phase 1 of that is to improve an upstream detention facility, allow for the overflow. Instead of flowing down the hill to the Maple Drive channel, will instead be routed uphill and basically around that channel to basically reduce the amount of flow ultimately being received in that channel. We would also recommend to proceed, and we would say Maple Drive is a issue that's very complex and complicated, and what we're proposing this year is just the first step. I would like to go ahead and study that channel more in depth on a very scientific engineering basis and do an H&H study there, which would identify any choke points that we have currently in the system if pipes downstream are too small.
H&H is your
hydrologic and hydrologic study.
Okay.
Hydrology and hydrology. Tongue twister. Keep going. That's why I say H&H. You know, it rolls off the tongue a little easier. But I would like to look at that channel, and if it's this board's intent to make some future improvements there, what we should do down there should be once and for all, and should handle the maximum flows that it would receive. So, and that H&H study would tell us that. South Montgomery, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the Colonial Hills in just a little bit. And then the last is the roadway rebuild, Central Avenue. I don't know if y'all been down Central Avenue, but it is in desperate need of some repair. It has got little or no base existing and a very thin layer of asphalt. Doesn't get a lot of traffic, but the traffic that does get it, the garbage trucks and the residential traffic there it's just unable to support it. And this is a roadway that will not benefit very well from just an overlay. It needs, if the board wants to spend the money, I would recommend spending it and fixing it once and for all, and that would be a rebuild. So recap on all of those items budgeted or estimated, we're about $685,000. We have $700 allocated. I know there's a little bit of difference there, but again, some of these things that I've mentioned are unknown. We won't know what the prices are until we get proposals, so I would encourage to keep that contingency in there. It's a small contingency, but I do feel like these prices are somewhat close. Going through the roadways, we do have some roadways that were left over from last year, or I guess the last roadway improvement plan, which was 3 to 4 years worth of roadways, and those are the remaining priority 3. We're much ahead of schedule on those roadways, mainly due to some attractive asphalt prices in 2009, as well as the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which gave us about $1 million to invest on street overlays. So we were able to make a big dent in priority 3, and those are the roadways that are remaining. I did go through and write all the roads in the city and came up with a new prioritized roadway listing, and what I feel the worst roads and most need of repair are those in priority 4. Obviously, we have to match the budget that we have, so there's a lot of roadways in priority 5 and priority 6 that really need work today, but budget is just not going to allow it. I will say that if if we do happen to get some very attractive asphalt prices, that some of the priority 5 would then shift up, kind of like we've done in years past. So the combination of priority 3 and 4, as again, goes back, it's about $448,000. We have $455 budgeted, and that will get us about 3.3 miles worth of improvements. Priority 5 and 6, along in the next slide will be 7 and 8 as well, are future years, or if asphalt prices do come in favorable, that some of the 5 will move up to 4. And but these are just kind of, if you take that capital improvement, that 10-year plan, and run out what our projected funding is, and you get your roadway maintenance budget, these lists kind of match that budget. So you can see in year 4, the overlay budget is going to be around $350,000, which is actually less than we're going to have this year. So I kind of tried to match these roadways as worst condition with also keeping that 10-year plan in mind. Again, priority 7 and 8, this is pretty far down the road. Some of these roadways, though, need some work, and they're going to need some work sooner than later. I wanted to include them, but obviously we need a little bit of flexibility because we're several years out right here. There's some roadways that are just not going to hold up as well as others. There's some roadways that are going to resist that fatigue better. So need a little bit of flexibility, but this is kind of the game plan going forward. Again, roadway rebuild, we have a budget about $105,000 this year, and this project costs a little over $100,000. Before I get into the actual specifics of the drainage project, I want to revisit this overall program, and this program was approved by the last board, modified or amended by this board by the addition of Northside Drive, which is project 28 at the bottom. And just briefly, what these different shadings mean. The heavy dark shading on the left-hand side are the projects that we have completed thus far, which is 6 projects. The top 2 shaded projects are lighter gray. All the way across the column or the row are projects that we have started but not completed, which is Carver and Hollis 1. And then the bottom 2 light gray shaded are projects that we have acquired all the easements for and are ready to start when the funding becomes available. The project 21, the top of the bottom 2, is actually recommended on this project. It's a small project down on South Montgomery, I think around $4,500. And so Santa Anita would be the only one that we're basically what you call shovel ready. On the right-hand side, you'll notice that the easements that we are going to require for these projects, the easement that we've received, and then those that are outstanding. So that kind of gives you a snapshot of where we are, what projects are close as far as easements are concerned, and obviously we'll need the easements before we can start construction. Again, this is just going over that improvement list, and we kind of went over this earlier, but I will say that the South Montgomery, which we talked about, the only other thing I would like to mention is the Colonial Hills H&H study. About 10 or 15 years ago, the city installed actually a double run of 36-inch corrugated black plastic pipe there on the channel that paralleled Colonial Circle, and those pipes are, I would say, in pretty bad condition. You have in your packet a report on those photographs. Our attempts at doing in-depth investigation on those conduits, we've been unsuccessful in doing those just because of the condition of the pipe. And I have from visual observation, I believe that one of the pipes is partially collapsed, and I'm not sure about the other one just due to the fact there's no access points along it, so it's impossible to get in and see what the condition is without actually uncovering it or digging it up. So what my recommendation would be, instead of spending a considerable amount of funds on doing something about this potential problem, I would encourage the board to do an H&H study, and I guess H&H is the theme tonight. But this study would tell us, it would run what-if scenarios, and And the scenarios would be, what if one of these pipes completely fails and collapses? What would that look like? Would houses flood? Would roads flood? What would that look like? And then run a similar what-if scenario if both failed. And I would like to bring that information back to this board, and that information, I hope, would help make an informed decision where you can measure the risk and the benefit of making the improvements there. And that is that report there. That's the conclusion of my summary. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
I had a couple, since we've spoken last, have you been able to make any progress on the easements at Maple? Or where are we at on Maple as far as construction?
I have had some additional conversations, and the property owners that I spoke with were more receptive to signing those easements.
That's good.
Yeah.
And then second with the roadway, so I guess priority 3 would be the first one, right?
Right.
Of the roadways. Is that something, I know that's been set, but the actual length, is that about $300,000 to $350,000 a year is what we get budgeted for the roadways? Just
Well,
for repaving?
let me go back to that slide.
And what that's leading to, my question is this, how often, I've heard 10 years before, but realistically in the city of Starkville, how often do you try to get to the major roads? Every 12, 15 years, or every road, or?
It's a good question. I would argue that the major thoroughfares probably need overlaying between 8 and 11 years. Of course, depends on a lot of things: drainage, base, traffic, types of traffic, frequency of traffic. The more what I call residential streets, neighborhoods, can probably last anywhere from 10 to 15. And then cul-de-sacs, which get very, very little traffic, probably on the higher end of that.
Well, people ask me often when the road's going to get paved, so I kind of.
Well, as you can see, the roadway maintenance column, which is the fourth from the left, that kind of outlines what the proposed budget is, the projected budget would be for the next 10 years if this plan was followed. And as you can see, it ranges next year anywhere from 318, and then in year 11, or which is the last year of the plan, would be up closer to 700,000.
And so I missed the part of your presentation about the asphalt prices, but you're going to lock in now to a price?
Well, part of this motion is I'm recommending to go ahead and advertise, and that would be the first project, because we'd like to go ahead and start those overlay projects this summer while majority of the schools are let out. So I think it's going to be comparable to last year. Can't really tell. I mean, it's a 30-day window till we get actual bids if we were to advertise it today. So it'll be 1st of May before this we'll get the bids, and I think projected we'll be at this board with those prices the second meeting in May.
So when should we be expecting actual road work or the overlays? I mean, what month do you think?
As soon as we can get it approved. I'm thinking late May, early June. Pending the board's approval and everything comes in. Okay.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Dillon.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval. Well, let me clarify this. In making the approval or the motion, would it be simple enough just to add in the motion to reflect the changes as presented with the Carver Drive amendment?
That would certainly be one way of doing it.
Is there anything specific in the budget that we need to reflect on that other than just saying?
You just need to make sure that the top line of the drainage improvements budget on page 6 is changed from $27,500 to $50,000.
Okay.
And that will reflect the additional money to be spent on piping the ditch.
Okay.
You can either do that in your motion, or you can reference the previous motion, and it can be placed in there.
Well, I move approval of the 2011 capital improvement budget with the revision on page 6 of 29, under Project 2, installation of 80 linear foot of 72-inch pipe, to be $50,000 instead of $27,500.
Alderman Dumas has made a motion to approve of the 2011 capital improvement budget as presented with the following change. Change Project 2, Carver Drive, installation of 80 linear feet of 72-inch pipe, line item on page 6 of 29 from $27,500 to $50,000. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Dumas, you wish to speak on the merits?
I do not.
Discussion. Any discussion?
I just want to commend all the board members to getting, on Carver Drive and starting to address that problem. I see tonight as a major step in the right direction. So.
And also, I think, the city engineer is to be commended greatly for what I think is a first-class project. And he's been working on this for about 3 months. So I just wanted to make sure you were recognized for that. All right, further discussion. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. All right, this is where I got to adjust to my agenda. Yeah. The next matter on the agenda is the request for approval of the City of Starkville Fire Department claims docket as of March 31st, 2011.
Ma'am, I'm asked to recuse myself.
We'll give Alderman Carver a moment to exit the room.
So moved.
Alderman Dumas has made a motion to approve of the City of Starkville Fire Department claims docket as of March 31st, 2011. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Dumas, do you wish to speak on the merits?
I do not.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And could somebody tap Alderman Carver? Is that it? I believe it is.
No, we got the electric
Just
department, tree trim.
I just want a question.
I'm sorry.
I just got one question I want to ask Mr. Kim.
The next matter on the agenda is the request for authorization to advertise for a tree trimming and removal service. Alderman Vaughn?
I just got one question, Mr. Kim. Doesn't we already have one present now that's doing the tree trimming for us now?
We've had one that's been in place for about 4 years. We need to get a new contract out and advertise for that.
Okay.
But the current one that we've used is S&S Tree Trimming Company.
Mm-hmm.
And is that your question?
That's my question.
Yes, sir.
Discussion.
Move approval.
Alderman Dumas has made a motion to approve of the authorization of advertisement for a tree trimming and removal service. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Corey. Alderman Dumas, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And that will exhaust the open session portion of our agenda. We do have a couple of matters pending for executive session. A motion to move into closed session to determine whether there is a need to move into executive session would be in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Corey to move into a closed session to determine whether there is a need to go into executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Parker. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And we'll now give everybody a moment to clear the room while we move into closed session.
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your healthcare needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.